He's one of those who's desperate to get to the Premier League.
Yeah.
Wants to play in the Prem, wants everything that comes with the Prem.
If they go, no, mate, stick around, don't worry, because next year, with you at the heart of this, we can get back there.
Yeah.
That's the energy fans want to see.
I watched him live actually last year, and I thought he was way better in the flesh.
Hello and welcome to Transfers Exposed. I'm Will Pugh. That over there is the Sun's Deputy Head of Sport, Dean Scoggins. Right, Dino, Chelsea's transfer operations, which continue, I think, to slowly change the opinion of people up and down the country. Todd Boehly and co. got a severe amount of grief, didn't they, in the first sort of period of time he was in charge over the first few transfer windows. £1 billion spent. What a load of rubbish. Yeah. What on earth are they doing? This is absolutely wild. This is not how we do it in the Premier League. And all of a sudden, slowly, you're seeing a few more long-term contracts handed out elsewhere. And perhaps people going, oh, Chelsea look quite good, actually. World champions now, of course, and champions of the Conference League. One of Europe's most storied competitions to win. Transfer-wise, though, on this video, we're going to talk about Xavi Simons at RB Leipzig and some potential movement there. Alejandro Garnacho at Manchester United, whether or not he'll be Stamford Bridge bound. Morgan Rogers, you have got a Sunsport exclusive update on Morgan Rogers, who we told you last week on Transfers Exposed. Chelsea had made him their number one target for this summer, with Villa valuing him at 80 million quid. And then we'll update you, of course, on the back page of the Sun story on Tuesday, saying Nicolas Jackson is open to joining Manchester United, but the Blues want 80 million quid. Xavi Simons it is first. Dino, according to reports elsewhere, Simons opened the door to a Chelsea move. Great little transfer bingo terminology, that one. After contact with his camp, other suggestions elsewhere, also suggesting that talks will start this week, today, in fact, at the time of recording. But you think there's a little bit more to this story, particularly surrounding his agent.
Yeah, I think, his agent Ali Barrett, or one of the agents he's working with, Ali Barrett, he's been kind of the super agent of the last couple of windows, and he's working very, very closely with Chelsea, very close to Begdad Eghbali and Noni Madueke deal, Nicolas Jackson potentially as well. But look, that's nothing new. That's agents doing their job.
That's agents agenting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Agents gonna agent.
Xavi Simons has had some good seasons at RB Leipzig. I watched him live actually last year, and I thought he was way better in the flesh than I was expecting him to.
That's the second Tottenham Europa League reference you've got.
It wasn't actually.
Oh, it wasn't. No. Sorry.
I went to an FC Cologne game.
Right.
And it was Cologne versus Leipzig.
No, right, I'm not having this. One was enough.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
he was fabulous, and he also was goading the away fans and all that, which was great. So enjoyed it. But he's one of those who's desperate to get to the Premier League.
Yeah.
Wants to play in the Prem, wants everything that comes with the Prem, and he's a Premier League type of player as well. I think he could slot into a lot of teams. So he's interested. Chelsea are not for a minute going to rule out a player of his ability, and we'll continue to talk about him. But there's lots of other movements that have to come into this, like Morgan Rogers, okay? So let's go there now. Aston Villa do not want to sell.
I was going to give you a big old build-up for this one. It's a Dean Scoggins Sun exclusive.
Well, we're alongside Dan King and a couple of other reporters. We've been working on this last night and this morning and starting to dig into it.
We were going to put this on socials. There's supposed to be a big build-up for this.
It's fine, and it's not about my ego, is it?
No, right. Okay.
But look, Villa, from what I'm hearing at Aston Villa, they're not wanting to sell. They're not willing to sell, and I know that the 80 million rating is a valuation of a player. Again, contract length, age, and all of that. They would value him a lot more than that. And they're not for a minute saying that somebody would pay 120 million Jude Bellingham money for someone like Morgan Rogers, but to them, he's worth more than the 80 million, right? So that, a bit like what we've talked about in previous shows with Manchester United and how much gets added on when it's Manchester United. Well, Aston Villa view a player that they've invested in, bought in, and invested, their time in, and he is a class act, by the way. So they are going to dig their heels in, and they would be more inclined to sell to other players rather than Morgan Rogers, because they've got a little bit of a PSR issue. They're down the bottom end of the table in money available to spend, so they would need to sell. And he's not homegrown for them, so he did the rounds from City to Middlesbrough.
11 million or something from Middlesbrough, between 11 and 15.
I think that went up to 15 and has probably gone north of that now with add-ons as well in the England squad and everything like that. So that Emiliano Martinez is the first name that I would suggest to wave goodbye to the whole end, much to Aston Villa's surprise at the end of last season.
So he's already done his emotional goodbye.
He has, So I would expect a bit more movement around him as the clubs all come back. The international players have come back in the last week.
Manchester United,
but very possible. But again, Man United need players to go before they bring in, and if they could sell Onana, then they'd be all over Martinez in a shot. The other one to keep your eye out for is Jacob Ramsey. Very, very sought after in recent years. Tottenham, Newcastle, Everton have all very much shown an interest in him, and so and he is
more
100%,
appealing from PSR
exactly.
For
Again,
Villa to sell.
Villa do not they're not names that Villa are saying. By the way, Villa will not go there with names.
No, quite.
That they are. That's me putting 2 and 2 together and perhaps making 5, but perhaps making Villa a big profit in that as well, because that's where the PSR comes into it. Yeah.
I think you upset a couple of Villa fans by suggesting Ramsey.
Did,
But no, you were again. The Rodgers one, and anyone playing Dean Scoggins' statement of intent bingo at home will be disappointed they haven't got one so far. But it's the same with Isak at Newcastle, right? A club's willingness or otherwise to sell a player kind of tells you where they're at, right? And with Aston Villa, obviously hugely disappointing not to get in the Champions League, but because of that, if they then just go, throw the towel in, see you later, Rodgers, you can go. If they go, no, mate, stick around, don't worry, because next year with you at the heart of this, we can get back there.
Yeah,
that's the energy fans want to see.
Absolutely.
And look, Jacob Ramsey, you said it yourself, a wonderfully talented young player from a PSR point of view, represents a far more attractive sale for Aston Villa, and just to speak frankly, not as impactful as Rodgers. Hugely talented, not to the same level.
Yeah, a question mark if he's in the starting 11 or not.
Exactly. Back to Chelsea though, Dino, just worth noting before we skip on from the Xavi Simons part of it too much, of course. Arsenal also have been having a look at him, come through Barcelona's La Masia Academy, 7 to 16, I think he was there. But again, as with all of these, that any Chelsea move or interest will depend on outgoings, and now
also linked to Spurs as well. We should mention Xavi Simons. It's another one where obviously there's the Morgan Gibbs-White saga going on. There's another transfer bingo term that
with him and Kudus, you're not getting Simons as well.
No, I would agree. So if Spurs do get Morgan Gibbs-White across the line, which I think will move in the next 48 to 72 hours, we'll get one way or the other on that. Then if they do Morgan Gibbs-White, they wouldn't do Xavi Simons, but Xavi Simons would be the sort of number 10 alternative for them at around about the same money.
Yeah, okay. Well, Xavi Simons, 22, got 2 years left on his deal. 11 goals and 8 assists in all competitions, 31 appearances last season. A very, very decent return. Like I say, Arsenal having a look, but Gyökeres remains their priority. They've also got Noni Madueke, of course. I've still never revisited the Arsenal fan reaction and reception to the Noni Madueke signing, because I very much enjoyed the reaction to your reaction.
Madueke shirts at the start first game season.
Exactly that. But Nicolas Jackson, then Dino, Jack Rosser writes, on the back page of the Sun today, £80 million for Devils to nick him is the headline. Nicolas Jackson is open to joining Manchester United, but Chelsea want a huge £80 million. Now, that was $100 million last week. There was some bulking of that in the market. They did the rounds, I think, to use your phraseology. And it was quite clear, especially based on some other valuations of similar style players, Hugo Ekitike, of course, that, no one's paying £100 million for Nicolas Jackson. Benjamin Sesko, there's also a chance that Manchester United go for him instead. But from a Chelsea perspective, Jackson, he knows that Enzo Maresca likes him very much. João Pedro and Liam Delap have also turned up, so there is very much a sense, particularly how well João Pedro did at the Club World Cup, that Jackson will be striker number 3. What do you think that means for Chelsea, particularly, in terms of the other players they might be looking at bringing in?
Well, Chelsea are interested in Garnacho as well. That never goes away. We mentioned Xavi Simons there. If they can get £80 million for Nicolas Jackson, then that frees them up to do those other attacking positions. Another wide player. They need to get rid of Christopher Nkunku. The João Felix thing is a bit of a mess. So the optimum, I think, for Chelsea would be that they move 2 out of those 3 along very quickly. That could include Jackson, or it could just be the other 2, and then they can bring in another utility forward, Simons, who can play left, centre, right. Garnacho can do the same. And then, look, Maresca would very much like Jackson to be the third choice striker, but I'm not, I don't think
he wouldn't say that. Exactly. He definitely wouldn't call him that, would he?
3 options, And also, Pedro can play in different positions as well. He's not like he's going to just be the number 9. We might see some games he plays off the left and Delap or Jackson play up the middle.
Or that second striker sort of position.
So Maresca's not going to want Jackson to hurry up out the door, but, Chelsea are very active, very, very active in the market. And so it probably suits all parties if they were to get a decent amount of money for Jackson. As we say, we're talking about 80 million strikers, Sesko, Gyökeres, Ekitike. Jackson's a similar sort of market for that. And he would then go into Man United as a first choice striker. Now, we should point out that Man United haven't made a bid. But they are aware of his valuation, and they're obviously aware that Jackson wants to stay in the Premier League. So, it wouldn't be, if they were to move on Rasmus Højlund, then it wouldn't be that difficult a deal for Manchester United to do.
Yeah, and Jackson, as we've said already, he's turned down Napoli and AC Milan, very keen to stay in England. That contract expires in 2033 though for Nicolas Jackson.
Nice contract to have.
13 goals and 6 assists in all competitions last season in 37. Just very briefly, because I do want to talk about this Garnacho deal in a little bit more depth. But if you are, say, Nicolas Jackson at the moment, I think he strikes me as one of those players whose attitude slightly outweighs his contribution last season. No, as in just, I know lots of Premier League players carry themselves like that these days, and for a lot of them it's part of their success. It's sort of part of that extra bit of need or an extra attitude. And managers always say, I want my players to think they're the best player in the league or whatever. Obviously, when that is quite apparent that is your attitude, 13 goals and 6 assists in 37 appearances in all competitions, that doesn't scream £80 million for me.
It doesn't.
But do you think, sorry, just quickly, if he was to stay, Liam Delap and João Pedro started brilliantly. I don't think if I was Nicolas Jackson, it's not like they've gone out and signed Gyökeres, right? Or Erling Haaland, that sort of style of like elite world level forward. You've got a player who was unbelievable, but for Ipswich last season. That's the highest level Liam Delap's ever played at. And then you've got João Pedro, who, again, very, very respectfully, and is an amazing player and has had a great start, has come from Brighton. You're not... Do you know what I mean? If you're him, do you not like, no, actually...
Well, yeah, I do, but there's 2 ways of looking at that. So he started last season like a train, fantasy football teams all over the land to make sure you had Nicolas Jackson in it. And then... a lot of defences worked out. Maresca's quite, I'm going to go all tactics nerd on you now, but a lot of them worked out the Chelsea boxing midfield and where Jackson was going, and they kept Jackson away from goals.
Exposed, Dino, weren't they?
Yeah, and look, they didn't fire up front anywhere really. It wasn't just Jackson, Madueke went in and
good
out.
Everywhere, weren't they?
Yeah. Madueke went in and out. Palmer went in and out. Had a really tough period in the middle of the season. Then they signed Neto and he started well, faded away, came back again at the end. They didn't really get as much out of Nkunku as they would have wanted. Obviously, João Felix was a complete flop. So it wasn't all about Nicolas Jackson. And I would suggest that if he'd have had either one of Delap or João Pedro as backup last year, he would have been more fit and more firing in that case, because he would have played maybe less minutes, not less games, but less minutes, and then also had a similar return. And then you might have been talking about 13 or 14 goals in 28 starts or whatever. So look, he's a good player. He's an absolute handful. Would I want him for £80 million? No, but Is he better than Rasmus Højlund and Joshua Zirkzee in a Man United formation? And do Man United have to pay top dollar because they're Man United? Yes.
Absolutely.
So there's a couple of ways of looking at that. And look, I admire his. I mean, when he first came to the country, I mean, he does still need to learn the offside law, but when he first came to this country, he got a lot of criticism early about his finishing, and then he improved massively, got his head down, worked really hard, and so fair play to the guy.
Yeah.
And I'd love him actually to go to Man United, as I'm not a Man United fan, but I would love him to go to Man United and almost show the other two Chelsea strikers that at Man United.
Could he not do that at Chelsea?
Well, he could, but is he going to get that opportunity? Have they signed those two players to be subs? I don't think they have. And if he does stay and then he keeps them out, again, massive kudos to him. But it's just I just feel like they know, the agents know. And that's why they're active in the market. That they probably got more chance of him starting 37 games at Man United next season than they have at Chelsea.
Yeah, it just feels to me, if he's as good as he clearly thinks he is, it feels a bit throwing in the towel-y to just go, oh, well, they've signed a guy from Ipswich and Brighton, that's me out then. If he's as good as he thinks.
But they must have had a conversation with the coaching staff. They must have done.
I'm sure. Right, Alejandro Garnacho, just to wrap it up. Dino, United, again, they sort of value him based more around his contract and his age, or the length on his contract and his age, at 60 million quid. The reality of it is, though, no one else, again, is going to pay that, similar as we just discussed with Jackson. And the reality is, if there was £40 million cold, hard cash on the table, given that he would represent pure profit from a PSR point of view, particularly the longer the transfer window goes on, that United would take it. Just talk to me a little bit about how you see that from a Chelsea perspective.
From a Chelsea perspective, yes, I think that if they got a deal around the 40 million mark plus add-ons, then they're still interested. And again, Chelsea, as I mentioned, in Nkunku and Felix, and there's obviously the Mudryk thing going on in the background, that they probably are in the market for one more forward. So he would be suitable, I don't rule out Napoli still. We talked about that right at the beginning of the window. That they would be interested. They are interested, and Man United kind of know where Napoli's finances are at from a Garnacho point of view. So that could be revisited. But again,
Garnacho or Simons, you think, for Chelsea?
Simons? Yes. They wouldn't get rid of. And the only way that possibly could change is if they were able to resolve the Mudryk situation, get rid of Felix and Nkunku, and sell Jackson. Yeah. So that if they did all four, then maybe two come in. But if it's two or three out of that list of four, then it would just be one. But
who'd you rather? If you're Chelsea then, and you had a choice, Simons or Garnacho, knowing what you do tactically?
I think there's so much to come out of Garnacho. I think there's so much to come out of him. I think the untapped potential is huge. And if I was a coach of Maresca's standing, I'd like to think I was looking at it and thinking, I can do with him what others have not done with him.